Boker Tov, Yom Tov, Zarim Tovim, and Lila Tov. Hope everyone is wonderful and well. Thank you for joining me. I can see that I have 5 so far that have joined us. I'm not sure what we've got going on Facebook, if anybody is joining us from Facebook. I will let you know that if you guys are on Facebook, I think that it would be helpful if you want to at least ask questions to be able to pop on over here to the YouTube channel called The Stand 121. This is where we are also broadcasting. This is where the live stream is coming from right now. And if you do that, if you have questions, then I can try to answer them for you. Otherwise, I will not see anything that you're posting on Facebook. You guys will be just in your own little chat by yourselves. So, and that's fine. If you want to do that, that's great too. I actually go back later on and I see kind of some of the things that you guys were chatting about back and forth. And I think the last live stream, there was a few of you that were chuckling that it was only a couple of you chatting. And that's because the rest of us can't see what's going on over in Facebook land. So if you want to participate and be part of this amazing audience, and I know that you feel the frequency while you're on Facebook, and if you want to join in as well, jump on over to our YouTube channel, The Stand 121, and you can participate with some incredible people, incredible insights, depending on who decides to join us today. As we continue moving on in our first chapter of Romans, we are going to continue going into the deeper esoteric hidden side of Paul's writings. And I wanted to just again verify or to share with you that Paul's writings are very, very deep and they are fantastic. In fact, most of the time when I'm looking at Paul's writings, I'm moved to tears because of what is being said in them. It's incredible. It's incredible to see what he's sharing with us. And I it hurts my heart when I hear people want to just throw Paul out because really his writings are meant for the mature audience. And we were sharing in previous discussions the importance of the maturation process. So if we were to be in a culture where a mother would be raising a child up from the age of 0 to 12 to the place of where they reach the point of accountability, which is a very Hebrew Eastern thought. If you were in the Christian church and you ever heard about the age of accountability, that's where they got it from. And this would be what would be known the sons and daughters of commandments. And so this is the principle of the golden rule, being able to orient yourself towards other people, how you're helping them or, hopefully not hurting them. The golden rule, do as unto others as you would have to unto you. And then also to rightly relate ourselves to God, the process or the presence of God in our life from an immature standpoint. Again, we're talking from the ages of 0 to 12. And this does translate into our spiritual growth as well. So when when we're in that lesser, the immature spot, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a progression of our becoming. We use that term all the time about the process of becoming. So mother does raise us up in the way that we should go from 0 to 12 until we get to the place of maturation and we become accountable, sons and daughters of the commandments. That is when we can engage ourselves into the bride status. And so there is a process of spiritual maturation to even get us to become the bride. And then when we enter in and we move past mother's teaching, we get into father's hidden esoteric side, which is all about those who are set apart as the betrothed, as the bride. That is preparing us for the intimacy in becoming and being those who rule and reign as Melchizedek's kings and queens of righteousness. And my husband was saying something this morning that I didn't connect to before, and I don't know why I did. It's because he's teaching on the Golden Compass, and if you guys have been watching his teachings, if you haven't, I highly suggest going to the Stand 121 if you're on Facebook, and look up the playlist called Everything Speaks. He's working on something that was given to him as we were watching a show, um, his Dark Materials, and it was based on the Golden Compass, and it is so fantastic. But righteousness is going the right way. The right is literally the word yamin, which means to take the right hand path. The right hand path puts you into light and puts you into mother on the compass on your journey. So anyway, something as simple as righteousness is like, oh, yeah, go the way of right. Okay, I get it. Sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake. That's okay. I dot connect a little bit different. So I'm glad that we have a few people here more that have joined us. What I wanted to do, we've already talked about mother's rearing and father's rearing through the maturation process. I say these things through inculcation because if somebody joins us that is new and they've never heard this before, this is going to be a little bit harder for them to connect to. So again, mother reaches us to the place of maturity so we can enter into becoming the bride. Just because you know who Jesus is and doesn't mean that you are automatically the bride. There's a maturation process that has to occur. And that is our spiritual growth in being able to raise ourselves up and out of the system of duality, which is very much needed spiritually, but it's coming up a little bit higher than that. And so then we're getting into Paul's teachings today, which are more of the hidden esoteric side. So the trouble that's awesome, Greg. I've got to post this. Yes, that's generally what happens with my husband. If you're referring to the one where he and I were talking, yes, it is like drinking from a fire hose. And that's what it's like every morning when he and I share. And that's why we started sharing those with everybody else, because there is so much information in there. And it's meant to speed us up in our maturation process. Lynn, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you are here. And I see my friend Renegade also has joined us as well, and Lisa and Carabo. I am so happy to see you guys here. And I see Trey is here too. Thank you guys for joining. So anyway, yes, Ken's teaching was like a fire hose. I'm going to have to tell him that you said that, Greg. That's awesome. So what we're going to do today first is I'm going to do a little bit of review because again, we are going through Paul's writings from in chapter 1 verses 17 through 32 because these are critical verses for us to comprehend today in seeing what Paul was really trying to translate to us, through us, in all of us, in the mature side of becoming the process of Melchizedek, which is Malchi means king or queen. It's Malik with a yod, which means one who has been given power by the Father as those who give, and then Zedek, which means righteousness, and it has a yod on the inside. So they have not only they've been given the power from the Father, which means they are mature. They also have been given the power on the inside. They've connected to Source, Creator, All Father. So I know sometimes that's confusing, and I don't mean it to be, but mother and father are a level of maturation to get us to the point where we can then connect to the all father, all source creator, the one that the energetic being that is higher than anything else. And mother and father are helping us in that maturation process. Mother being Yod He Vav He being father, all connected into one identity, having multiple faces dependent upon your maturation. Is the face going to be mother that you're seeing, or is the face of father that you're going to be seeing? Completely dependent on where you are in the spectrum of your spiritual maturation. Hopefully, you guys can connect to that. So, having said that, why don't we get started? I see 11 of us have been in here. Hi, Tina. It's good to see you. I'm glad that you've joined in with us today. Again, if anybody's on Facebook, please pop on over from Facebook over to the Stand 121 on YouTube if you want to participate within the discussions. If you guys have questions, please put them in all caps. If you're just commenting within the chat room, please do not use caps because I will be popping in and out and I will be only looking for questions because I can't read all your comments and I wish I did because you guys are amazing. And you guys are so loving and so kind to one another. You guys, you just make my day. I love the energy that you guys bring because we're bringing all our light together and we're shining brightly as we dig these things out. So let's go into, I'm going to actually go into the Peshitta so that we can see it. We are going to be looking at verse 19 today because the knowledge of Aloha is revealed in them, for Aloha revealed it in them. Now, in the New Testament, we do not have Yod He Vav He anymore. We have the maturation from Yod He Vav He to Aloha because this is the progression of our spiritual journey. Hebrew is divine masculine in nature and Aramaic is divine feminine in nature, and the two of them are to become one. And this is the mature side of seeing who or what God is to us. So right here, I'm going to highlight these letters for you. This is the word for God, and technically the root of it in Aramaic is right here. In Hebrew, the root would be here. So when we look at these letters already, we're seeing we have a strong leader. This is the meaning through paleo. And then we would have authority or staff of authority, a shepherd's staff. So God in the maturation. So again, when we take a look at the place of maturing, past the place of 0 to 12, now you're in the place of being the betrothed as a bride, getting trained up to be a king or queen. We would then take a look at this instead of it being more of the external. This would be the process of our becoming a strong leader, teaching shepherd that will be revealed, having the spirit breath, because the hay and the olive are spirit breath. The hay is the representation of the exhale, and the olive is a representation of the inhale. So, strong leader, teaching shepherds that have the spirit breath. And we will talk about the dalet in a minute. So, again, Eloah is the word for God in Aramaic. And I don't know, and you guys may or may not know, if you're new to our teachings, you may have not heard that before, and you would certainly not hear that in the Old Testament, because that would be the Tetragrammaton as Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So when we are looking now at where we are at in this moment, it is very good for us to actually look at a review. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pop out of the Peshitta here, and I'm actually going to pull up my document that I did for research, because that way I can put all my notes in there, and that way I'm not missing anything, which is really important for me to be able to see those things. So let me see if it will allow me to pop on over. It did. Okay. So let me go ahead and share this with you now. Let's do a little bit of review. When we were discussing last week, this was super important. Well, actually, I'm going to go from the beginning, but I'm not going to go really deep into it. We're just going to do a surface rendering of what we've already talked about. So we were talking about the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. And again, righteousness connected to the right-hand path. Go right. Go right. That's where the light is before you get into the darker hidden teachings. That allows you to bring the light into the dark, so that you are those who are serving others. You are giving in nature instead of taking power. If you guys are watching my the parable of the wise and the foolish virgins, you will completely understand that, because we've been discussing it for the last several teachings about the difference in the wise and the foolish. The wise go to the right hand, the foolish go to the left hand, because they want to grasp a hold of the power that comes from Father's esoteric hidden teachings for themselves, with no desire to serve anybody else or to lift humanity, but rather to control and manipulate it. So here we're talking about righteousness that is given to us. And in the very first word, we could see that righteousness, the Aleph, was added on the inside. So the Aleph is the finding the oneness with Source, Creator, All Father on the inside, but already having that maturation process that we've already walked in, because we've grasped a hold of it, and we're walking in meekness as connected to the Father through His covenant of one love. This is His sine wave signature frequency of maturation that is given to the kings and queens of righteousness, that are revealing that they are in uprightness and godliness, and they have justice. So, and it was for those who sojourn, and they enter into the door of being strong leader, teaching shepherds, as they build themselves on the inside. And then we have the word Gala, which is really the root of Giliana, which is the root of the book of Revelation. So Revelation, aka Apocalypse in Greek, Giliana is the word in Aramaic. So this is connected to the manifestation of what death, because we talked about that. When we enter into this realm, we enter into death. It's not really life. Life is on the other side of the matrix that we are born into. And this is being revealed to us. And it's being discovered because the Spirit is leading us into all truth. And this is for those who are even going into exile. So you think of all of the 12 tribesmen of Jacob or Israel that were spread abroad. They were all spread abroad. The 10 northern tribes, the 2 southern tribes, they were completely dispersed. And so all of Israel's seed has been totally dispersed amongst all the nations of the world. Hence why we've been in exile, and we are now gathering. It's such an amazing time to be alive. And we were talking about the manna, and going into what faith was going into the right hand path. And we were seeing that from faith to faith was entering into faith and then becoming a teaching shepherd of it. And the whole principle is getting us into that oneness, uh, the oneness principle, which is the Mashiach Christ anointing. But we must be connected to Father first, and we must raise up our fallen flesh nature, which means our ego cannot be in the beast status anymore. And that this was written as the ketubah, as part of the marriage contract, which is not really a contract, it's just an agreement that is meant to protect the bride. That's what it's about, to protect the bride. So when you enter into Father's teachings and you get into those sacred writings that we were, there is a measure of protection that you receive as being betrothed through the writings. It's pretty fantastic. And we can see that the process from being upright and righteous, from righteousness and uprightness, was that not only did we have the oneness principle on the inside, it was manifested externally as well through the Father. And we had Anna, Aleph Nun Aleph, which means I. I am of the upright. I am of the just. I am of the righteous. And that was because we went in through the door of the inward man, revealed our weakness, and we grasped a hold of the power. We decided to yoke ourselves to that through what Mother was bringing to us, through our manna that would establish faith. Her revelation of her teaching gives us the power to go to the right hand, to elevate our beast nature, connect to Father in meekness, have his sine wave signature frequency fingerprint of his Tav in the oneness unity, and that is the place where we enter into rest because we found life. Chet is the representation of life in connecting to Chava, Eve, the mother of all living, and Noach, Nun Het, was life, the life that is given to all as one. So that was the very first verse, and I know I went through that really quickly, but that was a huge piece in being able to set up for the next one, that the revealing was about, again, the principle of death, that we've entered into death and it's being revealed to us so that we can find life and discover it, a revelation that we need to connect to as those who are sojourning, that are not of this world but are in this world, that are a foreigner, that it is fear that we're dealing with, and it's fear that we are going to be delivered from, because it is the fear that keeps us in a poor and destitute position. But by gathering what we need to through the living water teachings that instruct us, power is given to us on the inside to raise ourselves up from that weak and feeble place so that we can be the first fruits. And so then we entered into distortion of what anger, wrath, indignation really was anything of violent emotion, including excitement. So we're talking poles here. So we have anger and fear on one side, and we have incredible excitement on the other side. We even have irritation. So this is moving out of the place of shalom, because remember the verse before, entering into rest. Well, there's no distortion there. You found life, you found 0 point, you are balanced. So this is dealing with anything that takes you way out of the balance of being in shalom on both sides of it. And I'm not saying that either side is wrong or right. I'm saying that they exist within the dual system, and that this is the root of it, Resh, Gimel, Zayin. We have the Vav connecting to source in the middle, our heart being pierced, and the revelation of the Father's teaching coming to us to deal with these distortions of over the top so that we're being brought more back into center balance. Again, not saying that either is right or wrong. I'm just saying that his teaching, which is allowing us to get to that place of shalom, so we're not in the turbulent waters, because even too much excitement can cause chaos around. Anybody that's been to a 5 or 6 year old's birthday party with a bunch of girls and boys running around at Chuck E. Cheese can know exactly how chaotic can be as kids are excited. So that can be chaos as well. So Father's teaching helps us mature in that. And that actually helps me not to pop my cork with champagne going all over the place when I get too overly excited and sharing these things with everybody. We're maturing and getting to be in that place of the center of shalom. And we were seeing how that this message is totally dependent on how we, defendant, that's kind of funny, is dependent on how we see God, because it's interesting that kaza means to have a vision, which is a het, zayin he, which is part of finding life. Chazah, having a vision of how we see God, is going to depend on whether the sword or plow is going to come to us, for us, or against us, depending on what side of the duality that we're in. Are we in anger, wrath, or are we in excitement? It just completely depends, because there are some of us that would totally welcome the sword coming in, cutting off the things that don't serve us any longer, so that the plow can begin to do its work within the soil of our heart to make sure it's fertile, so that when seeds are planted, that we can have good seed producing a good crop and a good yield. So it's completely dependent. So it's either going to be an adversarial thing, or it's going to be a welcome friendship thing for our maturation. Now, someone who is on the 0 to 12 spectrum in lack of maturity might see this as being horrible and terrible. I'm thinking about the times that I was grounded from my phone or from my friends when I was younger, and how unfair it was. But depending on if you're on the other side of it and you've matured, you can actually see the growth that comes from it, because everything that we're going through is meant to be our becoming. So the things that aren't becoming, we probably will have a sword against us. But if it is becoming and it is a sword, we're going to see it as a plow. Again, dependent on your perspective. So moving on, we were talking about the Shemaya, that it has to do with the water and the fire that purifies us, that gives us the power to be set above, in the Mashiach, that is the process of ascension for the bride who will be crowned to become completed and perfect. And then we were discussing what unrighteousness was, and that really we were talking about immaturity, a child, an infant, and a babe still sucking on the milk. That's what it's discussing here. So if you do these things to harm, cause hurt, wrong, or commit wrong, or what they would consider evil, that is because you're still a child and you're an infant and you never learned the golden rule, which in that process, you're going to be pierced on the inside, because this is an ascension process meant to raise us up out of being moral and a child and an infant. This piercing is going to happen within, so that you can raise yourself up and out of unrighteousness. Because again, if righteousness is going to the right hand and it's the right doing, then these who are doing that which brings harm, causes harm, doing wrong, which is really causing harm or hurt, then you haven't gone on the correct side of it. And really, this is going to be revealed through Father's teachings. The hay is here in being able to connect, also being pierced by Father, because you're in the fallen flesh. You're doing these things as a service to self rather than serving to others, because you never learned the golden rule. So that is really important for us to see this. And then we moved into acting wickedly, doing evil, impiously practice, and impious, not showing respect. So this even has to do in disrespecting. So if reverence is deep respect and impious is lack of or not showing respect, we can see that this falls into what they would say wickedness or ungodliness, simplistic. And we're connecting these two, having to do with lack of maturing. You're a child if you're doing these things. You are a child if you do not have respect, especially for a strong leader teaching shepherd, since that's what God really is, a strong leader teaching shepherd that has a staff of authority given to correct you if you are in the immature place where you are hurting and bringing harm to people, and you are not showing respect for one another. So again, in looking at this, we even connected this to poison. So in having, even in the head, in raising up to be a leader, if you do not have the oneness principle within your heart, meaning if I am treating you as somebody that is different and outside, and I can treat you poorly and badly, then I do not see that we are one, which means I'm going to be pierced on the inside, because until I register that, it's going to be poison within me, especially if I'm in leadership and I'm doing these things. That's huge, because Rosh, so Rashit, Berashit, the very first word is building headship, building leadership, building principalities and powers. So you have to choose to go to the right if you're going to be in the right hand path where you learn how to love one another, have mercy, have kindness, be full of light before you go into the Father's power, or else it's going to be revealed to you. And mother and father are both going to pierce you. She is trying to teach you to grow up and be mature in humility, teachability, and Father is taking the power of who you are as a creator being and wielding it in a place that has become meek because it's power under control. Because again, you're not doing it to serve others, you're not doing it to bring harm or hurt, and you're not doing it in a way that is disrespecting the others around you. Because if you disrespect others, you're ultimately disrespecting yourself. And so, really, you can see where somebody is at through their actions. You can see where they are in their spiritual maturation or if they're in the immature state still as a child. And we went into the human here, the Beni Nasha, and how it came from the place of being weak and feeble. But this is all meant to lift humanity up. And that's what Paul was trying to say. You know, you got to go through the door of mother. She opens this revelation, shows you your weak and feeble place so you can deliver yourself of it so that you can build yourself as a son. Again, it's a frequency, building family as a son so you can eventually become a daughter, Bet Tov, through the 222, but you have to go through the Hebrew process first of the linear before you get into the spiral. So building, and it is meant to give us power to lift mankind up, lift all of us up, those who would receive the spiritual teachings that will connect us to Father and deal with our fallen flesh, our beast ego, and that this was the truth. Koshet means the it means to balance, equity as evenly weighed, and that it means reality. So the aleph on the suffix, the reality is that we are all one. And when you connect to it, then you will have the balance within your life in the system of duality because you won't need the opposing duality systems anymore, saying, I'm right and you're wrong. No, I'm right and you're wrong. You're going to see that we're all one and that we're spiritually maturing. But that does not happen until you get out of the place of being spiritually as a child. Hopefully that makes sense. And that the Shet, the Shin Tav, is the foundation. And it's Shin Tav has to do with the posteriors, the buttocks, your behind, you know, and being able to have a firm foundation to be able to stand upon as we're walking through in creating our own reality by making sure that our foundation is firmly established. That's a lot of review. And I'm not going to be doing this all the time because as we're doing this, I mean, this is going to build on each other. So if you're coming in, I'm hoping that you will at least listen to the previous teachings. Otherwise, it's going to take me like 4 hours to just do review by the time we get to verse 32. So again, reminding ourselves that in this place that we need to build ourselves. Mother is going to teach us how to build ourselves, pierce ourselves on the inside to raise us up on the spiritual path to deal with our infantile state in being a child so that we can connect to our heart and then be instructed in the way of one. But we have to deal with being a child and an infant that distorts things because they don't know. And that this was connected to a husband and being married. And in reality, it's being a master over yourself so that your beast ego doesn't rule over you. So you rule over you. So you marry the two, the divine feminine and the divine masculine on the inside, which then raises you up to be the head over your temple. So the beast ego doesn't rule and reign over you. Because usually the beast ego is what causes us to stay in the infantile, immature, childish state that doesn't see the oneness principle, that judges and hurls insults and causes harm and malice. If and then what will happen is that you will project that outwardly, thinking others that are doing it to you when you are the one that's doing it to you. But again, some of those things are can only be seen as we mature out of the black and white world that continuously blames the external source for the problem when it's really all about an inside job. And I know if you've listened to my husband, you've heard him say it many times, and I totally agree with it. It's all an inside job. I've had to go through my maturation, and I'm still in the process of it because I haven't arrived. I haven't arrived. I'm just sharing what I've learned, so hopefully we can be walking this out and maturing together as a family. And this was talking about the very last word we were discussing here was about choosing to go one way or another. But really, this is all meant to unify us and to collect one's thoughts about entering in to this principle of being the brothers that are the judges that are maintaining and taking a hold of the oneness principle. But really, they are also the ones that are holding the immature out as well. Because the immature ones that are children are still harming and hurting others. So again, that's what this whole principle is set up upon. And if we don't have that, and we don't know that this brotherhood that are the judges, they are here to restore life to the people because we entered into death. So I'm really hoping that what I'm sharing is connecting some dots here from the first verse for what we are going to continue to build upon. Like I said, I'm not going to take the time every time to do this, but we've only done a couple verses. And so I wanted to lay that foundation again because it's been a couple days since I've shared. So I am going to pop out really fast and I'm going to see how we're doing in the chat room and see if there's anything. Hi, Corey Reed. Good to see you. Claire, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you're here as well. Ladybug, I'm glad that you joined us. And yes, sine waves. Thank you for that. I don't see that I have any questions. That's perfect. So again, thank you for being here, all of you. I can see we have 15 in the room on YouTube. So now we have the foundation. Let's get into the next one. This verse is going to actually go quick. We still might end up winding up in an hour and a half. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping I can get this one done a little bit faster because you guys have been awesome to stick with me as long as you have. Because these teachings, like I said, every word and every letter has deep meanings. And I don't want to skip over some of those things because it is so foundational for our maturation to be able to comprehend what Paul is saying that we can't just glance over the letters. Now, I know some people think that maybe that's going in too deep, but really, if you were mature, if you were past the place of 0 to 12 in the maturation of growing, you would already have all that information under your belt. So when you would see a word, all of that would just be coming at you without you even thinking about it because you've already had it as your foundation. Hopefully that makes sense. Yes, I will enlarge the font by 1 notch. I'll have to slide my bar over a little bit more, but I can do that for you, Renee. Thank you. I know it's difficult to see because there's a lot of information on the page. So let me go ahead and now I will go and shift back and we are going to start with verse 19. Because the knowledge of Eloah is revealed in them, for Eloah revealed it in them. Okay, let's bring it up a little higher. That's what I did last time, and I think that was better for you guys. Again, I'll have to just use my slide bar to move back and forth, but that's fine because I want you guys to be able to see this because you are going to be learning as I'm highlighting the letters as well. This is going to also begin teaching you through inculcation by seeing it repeatedly what's going on so that you can see it for yourself and begin to apply it. And then when I actually start teaching my classes, then it's going to be a quick work because you'll already have all of this sewed into you. So when we look at the very first word, it's because, and this is important that we understand that in Aramaic, that this word because also has the meaning of use parables, speak in parable, and for comparison, to compare. Okay, so having said that, this is Paul is letting us know by the usage of this word that this is a parable. That's important that we know that. And when we look at the letters themselves, it is in its static position because there's nothing added and deleted from the root. The root is mem, tet, lamed. What I've highlighted over here is the Aramaic font. Here's our Hebrew font because this is the one most people are familiar with. This is the one that you'd be looking at in the Old Testament anyway. Mem, tet, lamed. And what's very interesting is that on the inside we have a tet and mem lamed, which isn't highlighted. This is a shortened form of the word that means to be filled or to be full. And this is the waters of chaos that are where we enter into the living water teachings. Mother births us, or we enter into her teaching so that we can become born again through Father's teaching. And it's through the instructions of light, the letters of light, that is going to be filling us up, but we are going to have to wrestle on the inside with this. And that makes sense because some of us are entering in and we are going into these teachings and we've had years and years of indoctrination. So it depends on when you enter into this stuff, because this is Paul's writings. So it's meant for the mature audience that is past the 0 to 12 black and white dual thinking to get us to the point of taking the dual thinking of the black and the white and the good and the evil to bring them into oneness unity, no longer divided. And this is going to be a huge wrestling process. So those who are especially of the narcissistic system, or if they have a propensity to be that way due to hurts in self-protection because of how they grew up, this is going to be incredibly difficult and they are going to wrestle with it because most who are in that area, they've had to be in that black and white for survival reasons. And so this is going to cause huge wrestling, but it's going to cause a lot of us to wrestle anyway, just simply due to our indoctrination. So he's writing to a mature audience and saying that this is a parable and we're comparing things here because we need to rise above it. That's what he's trying to get us to come up higher. So this is a parable, and this is talking about knowledge and perception. This is huge. I have seen so many incredible conversations with people. I am going to highlight somebody here because I love the way she speaks on Facebook. If you guys have not befriended her yet, my friend Renee Gade, I appreciate her perception and how she sees things and how she challenges not only herself, but she challenges other people to come up higher. And I see that as other people too. And I'm not meaning to not mention you guys, but I know specifically there's been many things that she has posted because she's wanting to help us in our perception by sharing what she is going through and what she's seeing. So Paul is saying basically the same thing, that we are needing to come up higher. Now, the root of this is Yod Dalet Ain. Now, we have an additional Yod that's added on the inside. So this is power being given to us on the inside at the place where Source, All Father, dwells within us, our creator ability. What we create comes from our heart. We might think it in our head, but in order to activate it, it comes from the place of the heart emotions of what we are bringing in. That's why fear will create more fear around you, because fear is a strong emotion, but so is love. So this is giving us the power, means, and direction through the vision planted within to deliver ourselves from the weak and feeble position connected to fear so that we're creating through love. This is knowledge that is giving to us and a concept. The other information in its root means to know, to realize, to understand, to be aware of, to be made known, to make known, to be evident, inform, be well known, recognized, and acknowledged. So again, this parable that Paul's trying to talk to us about is he's wanting to make something known to us, those who are mature that would be able to see it. And with the added yod, because in the root, yod dalet ein, with the added root, the yod on the inside, it means that this is apparent, or it should be apparent. It should be evident and notable for those who have been given power on the inside, because this is meant for us to create and have our heart pierced. So this is only those that have the sea vision placed within their heart. Hence why the verse before had the sword and the plow, the zayin, in it. Hopefully that's connecting some dots. The sword and the plow has to come first to make the ground of our heart fertile. First, it has to be pierced. And sometimes if we are in selfishness and we are hurting and harming others, our heart needs to be pierced, because that's going to boomerang and come back to us, so that the power can be put in it, because that's what allows us to be repentant, to shuv, to turn away from the things that aren't building love, to turn towards the things that are building love, because shuv is directly connected to being married, to settle and to be married. So again, process, maturation, bride, betrothal, married, queen. So in this, the Hebrew root, yada, is to know, he knew, learned to know, he perceived and observed, considered, acquainted with. It is a euphemism for intimacy, to be made known, to assign, appointed, informed knowledge and expertise. There's a lot that's within this word. But what I want to point out to you is that this is experiential knowledge, meaning that there's an experience to be had. Nobody in a Hebrew mindset would be talking about anything unless they experience it first. Different than the Greco-Roman mindset. I'm talking inculcation here for those of you who are new. This will be new, but those of you who've been around, you've heard us say this before. The Greco-Roman mindset says, I know how to ride a bike because I read a book how to do it, but it doesn't mean you actually do it. That's kind of like college professors that take courses and then teach courses based on their book knowledge, but they actually never did anything with it in the real world. It's kind of that same kind of principle. So a Hebrew would not talk about saying, I know how to ride a bike unless he got on the bike to ride it. We're talking about experiential knowledge here, and this is what Paul's trying to get across. So the importance of it is to have an experience in this parable that you're going to be wrestling with is you have to enter into the door. The door, we know this connected to Yeshua. I am the door. I am the good shepherd, right? Well, the door is meant to be opened, and it means it's dalah. It's from the root dalah. So it's opening a door to a revelation that is going to help deliver you. Through what? Through the work and deed of your hand. So this door is opening up for the seed vision to be planted within so that you can see and have the eyes to see the fountain of the deep that is within you to deliver you of your beast nature so that you can connect into meekness to Father, be marked in his covenant, his completed work, meaning the revelation was coming to you. You received it. Now you're being revealed as one who has intimate knowledge through experience what it is like to go through his esoteric teachings, understand them, completing them, becoming them, and it being revealed. You being revealed. The hay on the suffix side is what was removed when we were in the garden that we have been hunting and chasing afterwards or after. This is why when Chava, het vav he, was removed from Adam, from mankind, Chava, that literally means life. It's life that is connected to revelation that we need. This is what we've been hunting and chasing after, is the Father's revealing, which then matures us so that we can enter into the age of becoming kings and queens and entering into spiritual sovereignty instead of spiritual immaturity. Hopefully that makes sense. So this parable is about that, this concept and changing our perception to come up higher. And then when we get into the word God, like I was sharing with you before, Hebrew, Aramaic, that we are talking about strong leader teaching shepherds that are going to be revealed as one and that they have the spirit breath. And this is important that we understand that within these letters, I have to go into depth in this, because if I don't go into depth in this, then we're leaving a whole bunch of stuff on the table that is meant to build us and mature us. So as Mother is teaching us and opening up this door of revelation, she's showing us the pieces through the letters, as Aleph being the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph Bayit Ivri, and Aleph, so the Aleph as Aleph Lamed Pei. I'm going to back up here. If you're new to these teachings, every single letter in Hebrew is spelled by letters, meaning there are the frequency of letters that came together in the Hebrew language that formed the symbol. So example, the Dalet would be a Dalet Lamed Tav, the Aleph is an Aleph Lamed Pei, the Lamed is a Lamed Mem Dalet, the Hey is either a Hey Aleph or a Hey Hey. It's a double Hey. So when we look at Aleph, this literally is a Hebrew word. You will see it in the writings. It'll be spelled Aleph Lamed Pei. And the base origin means to be linked together and to be connected. Of course it is, because it's entering into the oneness unity. The vision from above connected to the vision of the below that brings us united as one with God. And the word specifically means he was trained, taught, and then turns and teaches. Also means to tame and yoke. And we were talking about the beast ego, the sword and the plow that helps deal with our beast ego, less flesh nature, that does the things that brings harm and hurt to other people and disrespect. And it means to bring forth thousands. So in other words, the teaching of oneness principle is bringing forth thousands into the family of one as a single unit, as a tribe, and it has a thousandfold anointing, meaning that this is part of the Mashiach anointing. And we have the covenant of the pieces right here. The Aleph on the front, prefix, Aleph on the suffix, one representing mother, the other one representing father, divided, the promise given to Abraham with the torch, the flaming torch, which is the seraphic message. And you can see it's instruction on the inside that brings revelation. That's incredible. So then the Lamed, this is the rod of the teacher, and it means authority, and it means to learn and be learned. Notice how, so being trained, there's an application and there's a learning and being learned and studied. So the application and being trained up by applying through that which was learned and studied, putting it together, compiling it, bringing it together, and to teaching and studying and knowledge. This is again connected. All of this is connected, and you can see the layer upon layer because this is knowledge, and we're talking about intimate knowledge through experience, being trained up, actually doing something with it and not keeping it in the head, which is the Greco-Roman mindset, but having it translate into our heart so it becomes an action and then translates to what we do in our walk, translating it to our feet and by the work and deed of our hands. And so this lamed in its base origin means to learn, but it means to prick, sting, incite, and goad. And then connecting it to the sword and plow, that he who has the staff of authority that is instructing us is helping us to connect and teach, bringing it all together so that we can be connected as one. Wow. So that it can be manifested and revealed. Again, Gala, Giliana, connected to the book of Revelation, the book of the revealing, the apocalypse, which means to reveal. And we've entered into that age right now. That's why all of this is coming about, so that we are beginning to see that which we've gathered, because Gam-El means to gather and assemble instruction, so that the staff of authority, that which is instructing us, so we can bring it together, this revelation, because it's meant to stripping us bare so we can be revealed. My husband has something he's going to be sharing about disgraceful, and I'm not going to talk about it here because it's going to be coming up in future teachings of his, but it is not the way we think of it. Again, the way you would see it as a spiritually immature 0 to 12-year-old versus one who's in spiritual maturation, it's a completely different way of seeing it. But this is figuratively to reveal that which you have put around you and revealing who you are. Revealing who you are, to uncover. And it's about disclosure and things that are discovered that are being revealed and the uncovering of himself. Again, this is about the revealing of who you are, the revelation of you. And those who went into exile, really entering into this lesser matrix, into Sheol, into hell, the place where we ask questions, we have been, in a way, exiled from our higher estate, but we came in to experience so that it's being revealed to us the power, means, and direction that is given by Father, given to those who have a heart to give. So that is pretty fantastic to see what is going on here. And again, this revealing and manifesting, the root of it doesn't have a yod in it. It's Gimel Lamed Aleph. So it's revealing and manifesting the power that is given on the inside, because this revelation has to come, and it is going to be given to those who give, because that's also what the yod represents, the hand that gives. But it's also the power, means, and direction to do something by going inwardly and delivering yourself. So again, it's the work and the deed of our hand to deliver ourselves from that weak and feeble position. And then look at this. Look at what the next word is. It's bet in the root by itself. And that talks about in or into. So when you see in and into and among or against, this has to do with the spiritual maturation or immaturity, depending on where you're at. This is sharing with us that everything that I shared before about stripping us bare, building us up, the revelation that's coming, given to those who give, the power on the inside, the work and deed of our hand, is meant to be an inside job, because bet in the paleo, it means inside and it also means tent. So this is the work that is meant for us on the inside so that we can be pierced. That vav, or that dot on the inside, the dagesh, means that we've been pierced on the inside with the revelation that was given to us, pierced by Father. So we are in meekness while we're in our flesh. So this is letting us know it's an inside job. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to go through it. But the teachings are coming and they are here. And this is, lo and behold, there is God, Aleph Lamed, because the Hey also means lo and behold. So it's the spirit breath that is revealing this. These things cannot be revealed to you but by the Spirit. This isn't something like I'm sharing this with you, which is the revelation of my time within the sacred writings, and I'm bringing it forth. But if you're not connecting to it, then the Spirit didn't reveal it to you yet, because can only be revealed to you through Spirit. Man can't tell you about it. These are things that must be yada, must be experienced, intimately experienced, not through reading a book, not through just letters that are on a page, but something that happens on the inside that is revealed to you by Spirit. And this is for those who are sojourning. You know, it's really, so when you look at this, to shrink as in fear, this in the root, gimel resh in Hebrew, as a ger, as one who is a sojourner, this is so that we can shrink fear, because the power is given unto us on the inside by gathering what is necessary in our instruction to raise us up from being poor and destitute. Because we need that power to be revealed to us by Spirit so that we can stop being so feeble and weak and having others be the Rosh or the Resh above us. Because guaranteed, pretty much everyone that is above us right now, if you want to look at government, because they are governing us, they are there for their own purposes. And they were ruling over us when we are to gather and assemble the teachings that are going to give us power on the inside to raise up from our poor and destitute place to be in a stance of sovereignty where we do not need that any longer, because we are governing our own body, our own temple, by making our own choices in a place of maturation, not bringing harm to others, not being in a place where we're immature as a child, still on the milk of the word, still stuck in duality between the black and the white and the right and the wrong and the good and the evil. I'm right, you're wrong. No, you're wrong, I'm right. We are rising above that. That's what the Rosh is talking about. It's rising up, raising ourselves up from the place of immaturity. Again, that's what Paul's talking to us about here, so that we can be revealed, or it can be revealed to us. So now we have it in the static form, meaning that in this form, revelation is already there and there's a manifestation, but it's waiting for something to be done with it, which is interesting because the next word again, we have that bet all by itself, and the movement to make it a verb of an action is, here's the purpose of revelation and for it to manifest. It is to be a process of gathering what you need to assemble, to put it together, the instructions that are going to reveal to you what is necessary for you to mature. Because again, the root has an aleph on it in the suffix, but the hey, the Father's teaching must come to you while you are sojourning and shrinking fear. The Father's teaching must come to you so that you can actually enter into oneness unity. So again, if you are mature, you're going to see this instruction as the rod that's goading and urging and pricking you to be an inside job to bring this revelation forward so that you can connect to it and have power under control in the place of meekness while you're here in the flesh. Not as something is taking the power and is manipulating and hurting and harming others because you have this power. And the bet, so as we were going through the symbols, the constituent letters that make up this symbol is bet yotav, bayit. It means house, simply, but it means home, family, also means a school, to domesticate and to tame. So again, if we're going back and forth, you can see that Aleph also meant that, and so does Bet. Well, Aleph Bet is the Hebrew word for father. We're talking there's a measure of taming that comes from both of it, both of those. So you've got the inside taming and the exterior taming. You have both. So again, mother's orientation is how are you going to be tamed around other people? Are other people going to feel safe around you? Or are you one that is inflicting harm? And that can be done a lot of ways. You can harm people with your words. In fact, a lot of times when we harm one another through our words, it's really unfortunate because some of those scars go really, really deep, and those are the hardest ones to heal from. And you can harm them physically. There's many things that can be done on the external side. But then we see that there's the inside as well that we must orient ourselves towards. So we got the Aleph as exterior, beginning to do the work of mother. And then you have the Bet on the inside doing the same thing because father, mother, and father as one who builds, Aleph one, Bet build, one who builds, mother and father. Father is actually a completed mother because the two are one and the same. But that's the place of maturation is father, one who's already built. From Ben as son to Bat as daughter, having been marked with that. So in this principle too, with the Hey Vav Nun, Hey Nun by itself is a liquid standard measurement. So if we are talking about living water teachings, there's a standard measurement that is already coming to us. And as hen, it means behold and yes. This means that the standard measurement you've agreed to through Father's teachings and you've connected to it because you've been pierced within those. You said yes to the teachings and you said yes to building yourself on the inside. So those are the things, that's what's being revealed within us, is this whole process of maturation, taking us from the immature status of being a child and entering into the place where we're going into maturation. So I can't probably say this enough through inculcation that because some of us who have been, our foundation was set within the Christian church, we always heard that we were of the bride. We were of the bride. But if we haven't had the spiritual teachings and haven't come off the milk of the word, because the milk of the word is really, if you're still hurting people and you're still bringing harm and you're still controlling and you're still manipulating, and that means if you are going and trying to get people to see your way, see your scriptures, and tell them that they need to, or else they're going to go to hell, that is bringing harm. That is not bringing help to anybody because what you're doing, even though you believe that what you're doing is right, you are in that dual place, in the place of maturity, saying, I'm right and you're wrong. And that is service to self. Because really, the ego, the beast ego especially, wants to make sure that it can meet with those that are like it. And so when it's looking for those that are like it, it's like, well, you're in the inside club, but then all of you out there, you are scary to us because you don't think like us. And so therefore, we're going to say, you need to change your mind so you can come over here and be like us. Otherwise, we're going to push you away. We're going to shove you away. We don't want anything to do with you because you are different than us. Again, that's duality. That's that black and white thing. I'm right and you're wrong. So in our maturation, that's what Paul is trying to get us to look into. It's like we need to come up higher from that. We need to get into this oneness unity. These revelations are coming for us to deliver ourselves, because this is how we reveal God within us and also us as the Elohim. Because even Elohim, Aleph Lamed, Hey Yod Mem, it's Aleph Lamed Hey, which is the same word for God in the New Testament. It just has Yod Mem on the suffix, which is connected to the sea, which is connected to the goddess, which is the power that is given for one who has completed their journey out of the waters of chaos into the waters above, who have been set above, because that is directly connected to the Shamayim, which means heavens. And again, this is spiritual maturation through consciousness elevation through our ascension process, Ein Lamed, being able to see and know the reason and the purpose of the instruction to ascend us up in our maturation, because maturation and growing up equates to our level of consciousness. So when you're in a lower level of consciousness, you see everything as that black and white, diminished as a child would. And all of Paul's writings are not for that. His writings are not for the spiritually immature. He's not writing to those that are in the system of duality. He's specifically writing to the bride who is already in this place of betrothal, set apartness, that is learning to become a king and a queen, that have put the childish things aside to be able to bring the things of maturation. So that's all I really want to say about that verse. Hopefully you can see how the progressing of these verses is so deeply profound for us as a foundational, because we're going to start getting into some very difficult stuff here pretty soon. So Paul is just continually saying, this is the mature message, and you need to be at this place in order to receive what I'm going to say. And so even with translators translating, because only really 5% comes across, you can actually see where the translators were as well. But I don't necessarily always blame them, because I'm kind of past the blame. It served us for a while for the purpose that it needed to, for the thousands of years that it was being presented the way it was. And really, English wasn't formulated and fully established until the 1500s. So think about that, the 1500s. And it still morphs and still changes. So even if you take a look at that, so 500 years plus, we've been dealing with English translations based upon where the translators were at. You can actually see that they were coming from a place of spiritual immaturity, because it was very much black and white. It was very much judging and setting apart and separating and not bringing unity. So even those lenses were from that place. And collectively, we weren't ready yet. We were still needing to learn. We were still needing to learn from the system of duality. We still needed to see the seraphic message of the tree of good and evil. Again, we've been told that the tree of good and evil was evil. Let's just call it evil and let's just toss out good. But it is for us to navigate the system of duality. I mean, okay, so you enter into a place that you've never been before, or you forgot, right? We come in through the veil of forgetting. We're born into this thing and we're like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? We have no idea how to navigate this realm. This is all new to us. So the seraphim messenger comes, translated as a serpent. The seraphim messenger comes and says, you need to learn how to navigate this system of duality, or you're going to be chewed up and spit out, and you're going to continually live in chaos. You're going to need to learn both sides to figure out how to bring everything back into oneness, and then you're going to see the purpose. Because again, in the system of duality, you have those who give and those who take. How do you know what giving is like unless you see somebody who takes continuously? Dual has to happen. And so this is raising us up spiritually mature to see that these two positions had to be held. So even in the negative polarity, even somebody that is continually taking, somebody had to hold that position for you to see what it's like to give. And so I'm appreciative of that other side, because I didn't know what love was until I saw what hate was. I didn't know what mercy was unless I saw judgment rendered. I didn't know those things until I saw the opposite, which is what allowed us to be able to come through this and to be able to enter in on the right path through the right hand, our righteousness, to raise us up so that when you become Melchizedek, king and queen of righteousness, you found 0 point, you found the place of being in neutrality, no distortions, so that the Christ anointing, the Mashiach, can be activated in you. Because that Christ anointing that is waiting to be activated, it's not Jesus living in you that makes this happen. This is your own maturation into the oneness unity, the Mashiach that is being brought forth in us in our maturation. Someone who is in the age of 0 to 12 in immaturity is not going to be walking in the Christ anointing. They are going to be looking at it as Jesus, the anointed, putting it outside on somebody else instead of realizing, oh, okay, because remember, 0 and 12 is about your outward orientation. From 12 on in the spiritual ramifications is your inward orientation, which then allows you to activate the Christ anointing within you through maturation. And I'm hopefully that's making sense. And yes, I did see a comment on here. Growing, hi Paul, growing from our trials, of course. Our trials and tribulations and our pain and our suffering are catalysts to rise up and out of something that is hurting us. So I'm going to use this as an example. If you are in families or you have friends or you have bosses that are dealing with narcissists, and I know I keep bringing up narcissism, but really we are in such polemics. You have all these people on one side that are giving and loving and are wanting to assist humanity. Then you have the other side that want to take harm and hurt and steal and destroy and take for own selfish gain. I mean, we're in the extreme right now because we're getting right ready for the harvest, and both are entering into their full maturation season. One is rising themselves up, called the prideful. The other humble have they're full of fruit. So the head, wheat, barley, is bent. Picture of the Vav. So we have both that are going through right now. So the only thing that I can talk about really is dealing with the narcissists. So in dealing with that, in being able to see where they're at, this allows us to be able to move past it. But they are the ones most of the time that are presenting the trials and the tribulations that we're going through. I've suffered at the hands of narcissists. And guess what? It was meant for me to grow up, to be able to learn to set boundaries. Wow. So until I learned to set boundaries because of a giving nature, I'm just bent. I want to give, I want to help. Hence why I'm doing these videos. Because if I didn't care, if I didn't want to help, I wouldn't be spending my time doing these things for all of us so that we can grow and mature together. Because I didn't set boundaries, I was taken advantage of left, right, center. And I was beat up and I hurt and I was suffered. I mean, it was bad news bears. But all of that was meant to raise me up in maturation so I could learn to set boundaries. And that's what 2020 was all about. The squeeze, so we can rise up. How powerful is the word no? Two little letters. No, not doing that. I am standing as a sovereign because I have rightly aligned myself and I am now head over myself. The beast ego doesn't rule and reign over me anymore. Seating itself on my throne, declaring itself to be God in my temple. I am. And I specifically said that. I am. Ana. Because that's when we can rule and reign ourselves from that place of sovereignty where we aren't being manipulated through fear because we cast it out, because we perfected love. So it's amazing to see all of this because if we can take the chaos out of our lives personally, then we don't have to jump into the chaos that's external. It's like, you want to keep rioting in Portland? Keep rioting in Portland. Because that's just a bunch of chaos. So all that is people that have chaos on the inside that are manifesting it on the outside. Because they're trying to provoke you to pull you into their chaos. And those of us who rose up in sovereignty are saying, no, I'm not doing that. I see the ploy, I see what you're doing in the system of duality, and I'm coming up higher. And yes, I might be in this world, but I am choosing to rise above it, to not be in that chaos anymore. And that's what Paul's writings are talking about, is that it's all about getting rid of the chaos that's within us so that we can manifest peace on the outside. The resolve is going to happen by us cleaning up our own messes personally within us, by not having waters of chaos in us, by healing our trauma, healing our wounds, healing it so that we don't have to project it out on other people. Because those people, when they do that, those are the immature child and the infants. And I don't blame them. These ways of teaching us have been long gone. So when you don't have parents that have been educated in this, they can't train up their children in the way to go. And we did discuss that in the last teaching that is coming up and posting on the Wise and Foolish Virgins, of what training up a child is really about in the initiation process. Connect some dots to that, into the esoteric teachings, which is what Paul's writings are all about. I will only say this, and to finish up, because we're already at an hour and 11 minutes. You guys have been in here for a while, and I appreciate Christopher. I'm really glad to see that you joined us as well. I'm glad to have you here. It's important for us to also connect a dot in something else. And this, I'm kind of segueing here, but it's important for us to comprehend this. Those of you who have been around the Hebrew Aramaic side of things, or the Hebrew roots, you will have heard about the oral traditions. Now, the oral traditions were spoken of. They said that they wrote the Talmud was the oral traditions. If you don't understand some of the history of what happened during the Maccabean revolt, you don't realize that the priesthood was divided from that point. There was the priesthood of darkness, which happened at the revolt, the Maccabean revolt. They kicked out the Zadokites. And if any of you know some scripture, you know that Zadokite, or Zadok, was a priest in the time of David. And the Zadokites were the true priesthood, and they got kicked out. They formed Qumran. They were known as the priesthood of light. So when the priesthood of darkness took the Temple Mount, they are the ones that have been continuing in the process of teaching and educating by taking what they said was their oral transmissions, their oral law, and writing it into a set of scriptures that supersede above and beyond the sacred writings of the Torah, and they called it the Talmud. The oral tradition was learning how to interpret the writings through the movements of the letters, through mother and father's teachings. So without it, you would get translations that are surface only. And that's why some of the things that spiritually that we understand, that was spiritually discerned through us, doesn't line up with us when we see what Judaism, I'm not picking on them, because I'm just using this as an example, because we can find light wherever path that we are put on. But when the spirit starts raising us up a little higher, we begin questioning some of these things, because more light is being compressed within us in the circle of time as we are coming into higher revelations, increasing our consciousness. And then we begin to look at these things and go, something's not right here. Something isn't adding up. I need to dig deeper here because this doesn't seem right. Well, that's because if you're in the lack of maturity, if you're still in a child position of black and white and duality, you're going to take the surface interpretations and you're going to go run with them. So the oral law was, here's the letters of light and love. This is what they mean. This is mother's teaching. This is father's teaching. This is connecting you to source, the place where you create from. And all of that was lost to those who were in the priesthood of darkness, because they overtook, or they took over the Temple Mount. They kicked the true priesthood out, and they took not only all the writings with them, they took their education system with them. So now you have somebody else that is going to start a whole brand new way of relating to God and one another without having the way of looking at a Torah scroll to see what's being said. So they created a whole new worship system, void of the Spirit, void of the movement and the Spirit breath, the spirit of the law instead of the letter of the law, and founded something completely different. And then Yeshua comes on the scene to rewrite it through the Word as the Word made flesh, showing us, because Yeshua was educated in Qumran. You wonder where he went when he was 12? Connect some dots. Because he had entered into the age of accountability. I must be at my Father's house. Because he was learning the Father's teaching. So he was sent to Qumran. He and John studied in Qumran with the priesthood of light. I'm hoping that's connecting some dots. Brandon, nice to have you here. I'm glad that you popped in for a little bit. So if you guys have any questions, I'm done talking. It's an hour and 15 minutes of just hearing me just go on and on and on and on. It's my favorite subject. I can go on and on and on and on. My husband and I talk about this all day. But if you do have questions at all, please ask. I'm here. I'm opening this up. If you have just some comments that you want us to discuss, please put them in all caps. I'd appreciate that. I will keep this opened up a little bit more for that. I'm now searching through the comments here. I'm going to go back and see if you guys have anything. Sunrise Chi, hi, you are new to me here. Welcome. That's going through. I'm not seeing anything in the past. I just saw this comment, Renee. We were all narcissists at some point. Yes, we were, especially when we were children and babies, when we demanded attention and our diapers to be changed and to be fed. But we're meant to grow out of that. That's funny. It's very true. Very, very true. That's the key of maturation, is to get us out of that beast survival mode into being something that's much greater than that. So that was a funny comment. I totally agree with that. I'm still scrolling to see if you guys have anything. Oh, I'm sorry that you're in Facebook jail. That stinks. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good. I'm just looking at the comments here. So if any of you are just wanting teaching, I'm done now. I'm just reading through the comments and just opening up in case people want to be able to have some more conversation or with me, or have any questions. And yes, many people are still within the narcissistic place. And if we can understand that actually a lot of them are very wounded, they're wounded adults, that they've had to do this for survival, then it allows us to have more compassion. Because really, when I was growing up, there was narcissists all around me, and there's reasons for it. And we can go into incarnation or previous lives, and I know that's a very touchy subject for people, but I don't mind sharing my experiences on some of those things, because it's what helped me to to heal, in knowing that in my previous life I was a narcissist and I was not a very nice person. And so in this lifetime I get to be on the other side of what it is like to suffer at the narcissist's hands, and being able to learn from the other side of it. So, I'm grateful that I had that revelation and that remembering. It's really difficult when you're indoctrinated within the Christian church and you're told all these things of doctrines and demons and these things. Don't look into them. Don't look into the chakras. Don't look into this. And the Kundalini awakening is terrible. It's a sign from Satan. You're deceived, yada, 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 until you start experiencing these things yourselves. And so, you have some esoteric issues that you need to wrestle. There's like this hidden stuff is coming out, and then what do you do with it? What do you do with it when you start to remember that you lived previous lives and you experienced them? What do you do with it? Do you decide to lock yourself away, or do you begin doing research to find out whether or not you're totally going crazy and you're losing it? Or could it be that the veil is thinning for you because you've compressed more light, hence elevating your consciousness level so you can pierce the veil? Just a thought, because I know that with my experience, that's exactly what happened. So I have a question from Paul. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for putting it in caps. To learn Hebrew or to websites, I've shared this before, and I've been telling you guys this for a long time. I am working on teachings to be able to teach you letter by letter. If you are not wanting to wait for them, because I'm needing to get several ahead, there's some things that my husband and I are contemplating. We will be sharing that with you in a future date, sooner than later. But if you want to jumpstart, I've shared this with many people. Go to Jeff Benner's website, Ancient Hebrew Resource Center. That's a really good place to get the paleo meanings of the letters themselves. Jeff Benner does incredible work. That's where I recommend going. And I've also told people, suggested to them, I don't like the word told, I share with them to make your own flashcards. And I usually teach not so much from the Paleo Hebrew or so there you have the pictograph form and then you have Paleo Hebrew. Paleo Hebrew is actually ancient Aramaic. They don't want you to know that. They want you to just think that Hebrew is it, but it was really ancient Aramaic. They had the divine feminine, and then the divine feminine got kicked out. So then we get with the Hebrew that we have modern day Hebrew. And then we had the Chaldean flame letters before the modern Hebrew. It's interesting to see how it morphed. And it is actually, if David Macias was here, he would tell us about how that was all connected to the different signs, astrological signs that we were under, why that is the case, that it is the case. But anyway, so if you learn the paleo meanings, you can learn the pictograph forms, you can learn the paleo forms, but I teach in modern Hebrew because everything like the tools that we can use online, like Bible Hub, or even with the Peshitta online, if you don't want to buy a bunch of books, I have a bunch of books. I have so that if the power goes out, I can still research and be on my little merry way with a piece of paper and a pen and just go. But for the sake of learning, then if you learn the modern Hebrew, because of the tools that we have, you are going to be able to learn and go through both. And if you can learn the letter symbols, at least recognize what an aleph is, or a bet, or a gimel, or a dalet. So when I'm pointing to it, you know what letter I'm talking about. And then you have the paleo meaning. You can see how everything it builds upon that. In fact, if someone were to go through our YouTube channel and go through all the videos, you would have a very good idea of how to interpret them through the hidden esoteric fathers teaching, because we spend so much time showing you the movements of the letters, and pretty much all that you need is already in the videos that we have released. But I am going to be doing teachings on it in small classroom settings, live with people on Zoom, and being able to do it that way as well. So you'll need to look for that. Attach a link in the comment section. Okay, I can do that. That's a good suggestion, Brandon. I can go in after the video and just put the link to Jeff Benner's website. Let's see. I am very sorry, Greg, to hear about that. Narcissists are, I don't think they really mean to hurt us, but they do. Again, it's a tool. Our pain and suffering is meant for us to raise up above and out of it and be able to show them love through a place by setting boundaries. It is very difficult, but it's important for us to mature past that and grow up and then be able to comprehend where they are at. They have said that if a woman is a narcissist, it's very unlikely that they will ever be able to change their polarity. There's a greater chance if you are a male to be able to do it, but not if you're a female. And I don't go into all of the psychology side of it. It's just that I had to learn a lot of it when I was in my healing process to comprehend what was going on, because I did think I was losing it. And I did think I needed to go to a mental institution. That was not any fun, because it was complex post-traumatic stress disorder that really caught me off guard. So I'm grateful about moving past that, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to share this stuff with you today, because I would easily be triggered by the people who come against this message and want to say things in the opposite. I would have been triggered by it. And I don't anymore, because we're all in our place of maturation. We're all in different spots and we're all assisting one another because we're all heading to the same place. So, well, that's great, Paul, that you are able to know some of this from what we're teaching. That's awesome. 8 letters out of the 22, that is perfect. That means you're on the way of learning the rest of them. And a lot of the reasons why you know those letters is because you hear us mention them repeatedly, because they are key letters to our maturation. And yes, Greg, I'm sure that you do. Simply because if you went through dealing with a narcissist and raising up, then you would have CPTSD, which is different than the post-traumatic, because when you get triggered, it's an emotional flood. You don't get images per se. It's just this flood of emotions and you don't know what to do with, and it just shuts you down. So I understand. My heart goes out to you. I pray love and light come into you at a greater revelation, and that the healing will be made manifest to you. I found my healing in studying the language, because the letters themselves became teaching shepherds of light that helped me to be able to flush out and heal those wounds as those traumatic memories would come up, because much of them were blocked, so that I could heal through them. So I pray that over you as well, that you will find that and be released from it. If you go to my our YouTube channel, the Stand 121, if that's where you're watching, you can go. We have a playlist about testimonies, and I have my testimony in there. If that's helpful or not, I don't know if it is. It's just a short one, but it is possible to heal from it. I was told that I couldn't, and that I wouldn't, and I would have to learn to manage it. And I am telling you, I was set free. I am set free. So it is possible. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to let you go. We've already been talking for almost an hour and a half, and I was going to try to do it sooner. Oh, nope, got a good question. One more. When did the divine feminine get revealed? I am so glad that I actually looked. So when did the divine feminine get removed? Well, I can tell you that in the time of the Bible, we can actually see when it got removed was when King Josiah came to power. King Josiah removed all the Asherah poles, known as the Asherim. He removed all of what he called was idolatry, and that is what that was the symbol for the divine feminine in the people understanding their maturation. Because again, divine masculine is taught first, and that's through the Hebrew, and the Aramaic is the divine feminine, and the two need to come together as one. So the divine feminine was the feminine side of it, aka spirit, that was to help them mature. But they had gone away from the principles of the teaching, and in the time of King Josiah, they found the writings. And it was brought, the priests brought them forward, and they're like, what do we do? But the oral teachings were not available in the time of King Josiah. And because they were not in the time of King Josiah, they took everything on the surface, literal, instead of seeing the deeper, esoteric, hidden side of the writings of the Torah, which is Tav or Hey. If you guys know Hebrew, or is light, the covenant of light to be revealed, Torah. Those oral teachings were lost. So King Josiah, trying to do the right thing, got rid of the Asherim, thinking that it was an idol that people were worshiping, when, and in fact, they might have gotten so far off that they were. So he thought he was doing it right. But as soon as he eliminated Asherah and the Asherim, the divine feminine was removed. And from that time forward, and Asherah, the queen of heaven, was in the time of David, in the time of Solomon, in the time of Abraham, and prior to that. It was in the time of Moses. The queen of heaven was there. The divine feminine was there as the counterpart, the Yod-He and the Vav-He. And that's when it got removed. And so these revelations, so what happened, and even archaeology, they've been doing some digs and they've been finding pottery and things from the era, from the time of King David, that had Asherah on them, the Asherim, bringing the divine feminine, the goddess, back. So to balance out from the matriarchy, but heavy patriarchy, to bring it into unification. So it's pretty amazing. So thank you, Renegade Renee, for being here. I appreciate it. I'm not going to go on any longer. So thank you so much for you guys being here today. If you guys have any questions after this live stream, please go on to YouTube or even on Facebook and post your questions there in caps, and I will get to them as I am going through my day if there was something that I missed, because I really do want to be able to answer those for you. So thank you so much for being here. Shalom, shalom, and namaste.